Hi, first graders. Rosco and I are inside of our fort that we built yesterday, and we are going to read Roscoe's Adventures in Petlandia because Rosco has not gotten to hear the story yet. Okay, Roscoe's Adventures in Petlandia. Roscoe lived in Des Plaines and dreamt of being a star with his very own TV show and a chauffeur-driven car. Is that what you dreamed of, Roscoe? But being cute and furry made stardom rather tough, especially as the only words he knew were woof and rough. Feeling brave, he folded up his PJs and a flannel, along with some ideas for his Roscoe You Chew channel. Sneaking into Mrs. Anger's room, he scrawled a doggy note, then kissed her gently on the cheek and went to get his coat. Scampering through the moonlit streets with thoughts of being wealthy, Roscoe stopped beside a sign and thought, I'll take a selfie. Pulling out his eye bone, he posed and took a snap, then headed to the airport, well, squinting at his map. Here's his selfie. You take pretty cute selfies, huh? Roscoe was excited because he'd never flown before, unless you count that time he slammed a laptop on his paw. And as the plane took off, he thought of A-list hounds and mutts while trying to squish his nose into a teeny bag of nuts. All right, here's all the puppies on the plane. Do you see Roscoe? I found him right there. When Roscoe got to Hollywood, he set up several meets, but most of them went wrong because he tinkled on the seats. My goodness. And even though he tried his best, the top dogs weren't impressed. We've seen your act before, kid, and look at how you're dressed. Poor Roscoe. With failure after failure, Roscoe's confidence was shrinking. Oh, my poor pups. But then he saw a saxophone, which kind of got him thinking. Can you play the saxophone? Meanwhile, back in Des Plaines, Mrs. Angers found a note. My dog thinks he'll be famous. Oh, what a silly goat. Look at this note. It says woof, 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 woofity woof, 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 bark, woof, woof, woof. P.S. Woof. Did you write that? Did you write that note? What were you thinking, you silly puppy? But suddenly, she looked up and saw Rosco on the news. He'd become an online superstar with 50 million views. That's crazy. It seems dogs can learn new tricks, Mrs. Angers thought out loud, and even though she missed her friend, she was also very proud. There was Rosco on a chat show, tootling away, while teetering on a unicycle and doing dog ballet. So look, she's watching TV, or me, I am. And that's what I see. What do you think? No? Soon the world was going wild for Roscoe's jolly tunes. You could even buy a storybook and see him in cartoons. Were you in cartoons? I didn't know that. Wow. Very cool. He bought a doggy mansion and a limo and a yacht. He even met the president and partied quite a lot. Other doggies lined up to shake Rosco by the paw. Let me have your paw. Just like that. And scripts for pet-based movies came tumbling through the door. He'd sit up and count his money while lounging on his throne. But when he wasn't working, he'd often be alone. Because he felt so lonely, Rosco bought more stuff. But even though he had it all, it was never quite enough. He tried some doggy yoga, which he thought might make him happy, but that just tied him up in knots and made him sore and snappy. Look at the other dogs. Oomph. Then suddenly it hit him as he chewed his oldest bone. What Rosco wanted most of all was to be snuggled back at home. Yes, he'd miss his fancy life, the palm trees, and his chauffeur, but none of that compared to cuddling Mrs. Angers on the sofa. He called off all his concerts and he gave away his things, but all flights home were fully booked, so he clung on to the wings, like Rosco calls off world tour. Oh my goodness, that doesn't look safe at all. Soaring over Des Plaines, Rosco thought, I've had a hoot, but home is where the heart is, so I need a parachute. Fumbling in his suitcase, he found a sparkly gown, then used it as he leapt off to sort of slow him down. That looks dangerous, Rosco. I can't believe you did that. Tumbling through the fluffy clouds was really quite a rush, but Rosco had to slow down or he'd soon be doggy mush. Just then he saw a mattress dumped upon a roof, so he steered himself towards it and landed with a woof. That was a close one. Jumping into Mrs. Anger's arms, Rosco cried with joy. Then Mrs. Anger squeezed the squeaker in a squishy, squashy toy. Fame is pretty epic, but snuggling is the best, thought Rosco as he curled up to enjoy a well-earned rest. Miles away in Hollywood, things were much the same, and countless pets arrived each day to search for wealth and fame. They often spoke about that dog who played the saxophone and how he left it all behind because he missed his home. But Rosco wasn't bothered that he'd given up the fame, that he'd given fame the shove, because his trip had taught him that what really counts is love. The end. Did you guys like that story? I'm glad that Rosco got to hear it for the first time, and I'm glad that he is home with me instead of off and being famous. I'm sure he's very glad too. Okay, thanks for reading with us. Goodbye.